Hello, good people. As you know, I love living in the future. I see a lot of online nostalgia for times past, but that is just not happening. And if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. And the one you're with is right now. And this future is strange. Now, social media has opened up the floodgates for cult leaders. I've done many videos on it. Check them out. We are here to watch and take notes because there's not much we can do about it. Now, I recently watched this elephant graveyard video on Joe Rogan. It is called How Comedy Was Destroyed by an Anti-Reality Doomsday Cult. And he breaks down how Joe Rogan has become a de facto cult leader. And it's a really interesting video, but I can't agree with it 100% for the reasons I'm going to give you. Check out my video, Not Everything is a Cult, because not everything is a cult. Now, I will break down my thoughts on Joe Rogan in particular at the end of this video, but this is not what this video is about. The Joe Rogan effect, it is tribal, it is having a massive effect on society as a whole and the comedy scene, of course, but that's just for 5 minutes at the end. That's not this whole video. That's been done to death. Check out Elephant Graveyard, of course. Check out Too Lazy to Try. They've been covering it, and I'm not really going to add so much to that. However, I can tell you the real influencer to cult leader pipeline. It's a real thing. Why are the two so similar, you might ask? There's a lot going on in the back end that the casual viewer might not be familiar with, but it does put influencers on that pipeline. Also, why do influencers make such natural cult leaders? Honestly, cult leaders, formerly known as false prophets, they are the original influencers. And I'm going to go into that shortly. Now, we have covered some straight up influencers who were also cult leaders. Check out that Rate My Cult on Mother God. She was legitimately the most entertaining chapter in this whole YouTube app. She was a cult leader who built her following through posts, through social media posts and videos. She moved people to a commune. Then she started selling these health supplements and turned herself blue by taking too much colloidal silver. And then she died. And then her followers started worshiping her mummy. That is why I have YouTube. That's why I pay for premium for stories like that. You can take your makeup tutorials and go somewhere with them. Because if you're not worshiping a mummy on this app, I don't want it. I'm kidding, of course, because that's really extreme. And I do appreciate the makeup tutorials, so keep them coming. You know what I mean. That's entertaining. First and foremost, most influencers are not going to start a cult. Most influencers are here for social capital, and they're here to express themselves and hopefully to make money. They don't really want to control other people. There's actually a perfectly natural personality trait that leads people to become influencers, and that is the desire to express oneself. And the way that social media works is that a small group of users, they spark the conversation, and a large group of users, they just listen and lurk. They don't really contribute. They follow, they might like, they may comment every once in a while. But it's that small group that really participates in the conversation. And without them, these apps are basically useless. So if you put any group of people together, leaders and followers will emerge. It's freaky, really freaky how quickly people adopt these roles in these situations. And some people say that influencers emerge because there are leaders and there are followers. And technically that is true, but I'd have to add a caveat to that. And that is people are leaders and followers in different aspects of their lives. Just because someone is a follower on YouTube, it doesn't mean they're going to be a follower at their local sports club or their sports league that they're involved in. And someone could be the best physical therapist in the world, but that doesn't mean they're going to make a good physical therapy influencer. Social media rewards charisma. It rewards speaking ability, the gift of gab. And influencers who are good at speaking, who are charismatic, and who know how to maximize the platform will actually do better than a person who is more of an expert in the subject. It's style over substance. That's what you're here for. Now, I'm not going to break down how to be an influencer. There are hundreds of videos on that. I will point out the most relevant points in regards to our topic. Now, being an influencer is a hobby for most people. And I don't even like to use the term influencer for most of us because we're content creators. We are content creators. And the difference is the action. What do you want to do and why? And for most, it's I like to make videos and share this thought. But if someone wants to be an influencer, they're saying, I like to make videos and win other people over to my side. And that's a very subtle difference, but it is a difference. And it's the underlying motivation of the creator. So warning, do not become a content creator for the money. There is no money in it. On YouTube, you get paid in ads, which is like max $8 per 1,000 views. I'm not kidding. So when you do the math, it's actually less than minimum wage for the time it takes to produce and edit a video. You're doing this because you want to see people, want to speak to people. You want to, what's the word? Connect. You want to connect. Have you seen the OnlyFans math? The top 1% of creators make a third of the revenue. The average OnlyFans model only makes $150 a month. So it's basically a hobby. And that's similar across all platforms. Most content creators, they don't make much. Now, for a lucky few, they can quit their day jobs. For a villainous few, there's a path to narcissistic control. There are those who exploit and abuse their followers. And in my opinion, it actually takes a pretty sick individual to do that. My point is, it is not for the money that people become content creators. They do it for the prestige primarily. Now, prestige isn't just clout. It's something much more meaningful. Now, Oxford defines prestige as the widespread respect and admiration felt for someone or something on the basis of perception of their achievements or quality. Now, I read this great book in school. It's called The Neurotic Personality of Our Time by Karen Horney. And the big takeaway that I remember from this book is that people are motivated by the 3 Ps: power, prestige, and procession. So DC, LA, and New York City. I'm not saying you can't get power and possession through prestige, but it's not what the primary motivator is. Now, the goal of being an influencer is to attain social capital through your achievements. Similar to being an artist, you attain social capital through your achievements. So I do think an influencer who just wants prestige is honestly not a huge problem. It's like, they're cool, that's the job. It's like an artist, they want to be recognized for their art. Okay, cool. Let's discuss the most non-offensive influencer ever. Like, we love her. There's nothing not to like about her. She talks about knitting and kittens. Her name is Betsy. This person does not exist, by the way. And no, we're not going to go into that knitting cult or the toxic online knitting community. I know, I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, Betsy doesn't participate in any of those things. She's really cool. She's really sweet. Now, Betsy could be happy to upload her video to maybe 10 viewers. There are millions of videos on YouTube that only have 10 views or less. But Betsy is ambitious. She wants to have thousands or millions of views. And in order for Betsy to become more popular, she needs to work on her brand. Why is it that Betsy is different from other people? Betsy wants more prestige. That's her P. So she has to work on branding. And that means crafting an avatar that has all the attributes that she wants to project. Betsy herself is the product. You, the viewer, are the buyer. Now, if she projects the attributes that you want, you will watch. So what is Betsy? It's not knitting and cats. This is not 1920 anymore. We don't sell products. We sell ideas. Her brand is comfort and companionship for introverts. Look, I personally know a lot of influencers, and what you see on your phone is about 50 to 90% of them. No one brings their full self to the app, nor should they. At your job, you are not your full self. I hope so, or HR will call you. As a functioning adult, you are not your full self in this world. You present the self that you want others to see. We did a video on Irving Goffman, presentation of self in everyday life. Please go check that out. I'm not going to repeat it. But what you present to the public is an avatar that you have crafted. And the closer we get to be to this avatar, the less inner conflict we have. Multiply that concept by 10 for influencers. So like for me, I try to be as close to Maya Muses as I can be. That oftentimes means growing as a person to get there. It's how we all work. We design this character in life. Now, a sicko can straight up present a false avatar to the world. And I don't even want to say a sociopath would do that, because there are plenty of sociopaths and psychopaths who are raised well. Raise your sociopath well, people, because then they remain consistent in their actions and their avatars, even if they don't have the same inner feeling. I'm tired of the sociopathy. Anyway, I will not call cult leaders sociopaths or psychopaths, because that is a very specific term. I will call them weirdos, okay? That's what they say amongst my people. He's a fucking weirdo kid. That's what his problem is. That's where I come from. That's my dialect. Anyway, the problem comes when a person acts to control and to humiliate others, not just when they're putting themselves out there. So to stand out as a content creator, Betsy has to have a brand. That's her brand. She has to be recognizable for something because a lot of people are doing the same thing. There are thousands or millions of us. So what makes her unique? Why do people turn in to watch her? So this branding process, it's very similar to a cult of personality. Now, Britannica defines a cult of personality as a deliberately created system of art, symbolism, and ritual centered on the institutionalized quasi-religious glorification of a specific individual. Now, branding is on the cult of personality spectrum. Unfortunately, it's all a spectrum. Please check out Stephen Hassan's The Influence Continuum, and he explains that cults are groups that exert the highest influence. All groups exert some influence, but cults exert the highest degree. Most groups are not going to try to arrange your marriage, for example. So check that out. It's a spectrum, okay? But how quickly does brand creation slide into the cult of personality? Because yes, the Britannica definition is what a PR team will do for you as an influencer. And I do not believe that every influencer is intentionally trying to foster a cult of personality. It's just the game. They're just playing the game. And most top content creators stop at the quasi-religious part of that definition. The rest, a deliberately created system of art, symbolism, and ritual centered on the institutionalized glorification of a specific individual. That's just branding 101. That's marketing 101. That's what you're supposed to do. So that is the first stop in this slippery slope from influencer to cult leader. It's a thing. Next, who is our influencer Betsy speaking to? We like Betsy, we like her followers because she is speaking to people who are most like her. Most content creators are. She's selling comfort and companionship to introverts because she enjoys comfort and companionship and she's an introvert. Hopefully, unless she's a fucking weirdo. She forms relationship with people who watch her and who comment. And that's the way it's supposed to work. But of course, some people abuse this. Now, parasocial relationships, let's talk about that. This is the definition from Psychology Today, and we will go into it. Parasocial relationships refer to one-sided relationships in which a person develops a strong sense of connection, intimacy, or familiarity with someone they don't know. Most often celebrities or media personalities. These relationships exist only in the minds of the individual who experiences a bond despite the lack of reciprocity. The term was coined by psychologists Donald Horton and R. Richard Wohl in 1956 when television became widely available. And they noted that TV viewers began to develop the illusion of intimacy with the characters on the screen. Parasocial relationships are much different now because creators can respond and they do respond. And I've noticed quite a few of my followers, I know them by name. So it is actually a two-way relationship now. It does seem like we're reverting to olden times, like pre-TV times. We're talking about a theater, a local theater where you might interact with the actors. Now for TV, you got a show on one network and people watched because that was what there was to watch. It was just streamed at you. What is the term? Broadcast. It was broadcast. Broadcast television, you know? That's what it is. It's not streaming. I don't know. I couldn't think of the word. Anyway, now it's like these viewers, they walk through these virtual fields and they go from booth to booth and they're watching these shows. And if the viewer likes it, she sticks around. And then the content creator will do crowd work afterwards. So it's going way back to like 1900, the turn of the century then. So what is a better term? What about metasocial relationships? Now, meta means beyond. But I don't want to think of that lizard ass Zuckerberg whenever we say it. So how about psi-social relationships? That means together. I think meta is actually better. And I definitely resent that Zuck took a whole ass Greek prefix. Like, who does this guy think he is? So YouTube is more like public access TV. It's like the Wild West, where these itinerant preachers, they went from town to town and they would set up shop and they would start preaching. And if they gathered a crowd, good, they were successful and they kept going. Influencers established these metasocial relationships or these psi-social relationships. Put in the comments which terms you prefer. So are we going to say, screw Zuck, I'm using meta? Or are we saying, screw Zuck, he doesn't get the prefix meta? That's not for him. Basically, how are we sticking it to Zuckerberg here? Not are we sticking it to Zuckerberg? Because we definitely are, one way or the other. Okay, great. Moving past. So you have a cult of personality and you have a following of people listening to you on your soapbox. We're all watering our horses here. Everybody's entertained. What's the problem? None, really, because that's how it should be. Content creators create content. But that is the second way that content creators or influencers and cult leaders overlap, with the type of relationships that they form with their followers, because it is similar to a cult. The leader of a cult is aware of his followers, especially the most devoted ones, that he then gets to share his message for him, like share and subscribe. But then this content creation thing takes a lot of time, and a lot of content creators often want to focus on this exclusively, or at least they'd like to have that option. The ad revenue is not much unless you're getting millions and millions of views. That's why some of the best pages on YouTube have gone dark. They weren't getting the views. They were not appreciated, even though their content was top tier. Mr. Vibes, you were appreciated. I like to do my Soka wine and just weep one tear for Mr. Vibes because he deserved it. Cast not the dance hall pearls before swine. That's what happened with Mr. Vibes. I still watch your videos, Mr. Vibes. Anyway, content creators make money from ad reads. That's why YouTube videos, they're full of ads now, because good content takes time, and these creators, they deserve to be paid. YouTube itself barely pays, even though they're making a lot of money from them. Anyway, the other option is to sell a course. A creator can position himself as an expert and sell a course or individual coaching. Sometimes you'll see that they sell books. Honestly, it's very similar to how Bill O'Reilly used to be a pundit, but he would also sell these books. And content creators have a smaller audience and a closer relationship to their audience. So they're kind of pitching their book or their coaching directly. But look, some of these old school 90s conservative commentators, they had a semi-cult-like relationship with their followers as well. Conservative talk radio was very similar to cult programming, and then liberal talk radio became that way too. And cable, of course. The first thing an advice column on how to make it as an influencer will tell you is to sell a course, because you need to make that money. Now, not every influencer who sells a course is a cult leader, but there is a slippery slope, especially depending on the topic. Some topics lend themselves to cult formation. They just do. Knitting, not really. It's a technical thing. Psychology, kinda. Picking up women, absolutely. And you don't just sell the course. You can upsell to a more expensive course. You get people to join the inner circle and you give them special privileges. You get them to go out and sell more courses on your behalf. Already, this business model resembles a self-help cult. Now, we love a self-help cult on this channel. Keith Raniere, remember he ran Nexium? We did a Rate My Cult on him like years ago, like one of my first videos. He got all those silly ladies to brand themselves with his initials, and he wasn't even much to look at. Seriously. Tony Robbins, he runs this self-help empire, which it borders on a cult of personality, but at least he's a looker. I hate to see people getting bent out of shape for uggos. Ugh. Now, there are corporate cults with similar business models, like multi-level marketing businesses. All right, whatever. I have been shocked to see the alpha male mini cults pop up everywhere. The biggest one is Andrew Tate, and I wouldn't call his following mini at all. He's sort of a blueprint for all the others. Tate, he got into trouble by pimping. Now he says he's innocent of those charges. Like, he didn't sell a pimping course online, whatever. There are so many of these alpha male bros selling their coaching or their courses. It is crazy how quickly this proliferated. Then you have the hustle bro subculture, which sells you on thinking for success. Now, Mike Winnett, he has the best channel on YouTube, hands down. Top 10 channel. It's called Entrepreneur, where he does these videos on these get rich quick business gurus. Actually, I just checked and he doesn't post anymore. And that is a tragedy, because he did have the best videos on YouTube, where he really broke down these entrepreneur coaches and how they would sell this unattainable goal, like the financial equivalent of enlightenment. And then by the person being in their aura and getting their coaching, they would get rich. Yada, and then you're rich. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. And this is what I mean, that social media doesn't reward substance. I am so mad Mike Winnett stopped. He was legitimately doing a public good. He didn't need the money. I hope he's living his best life somewhere. Mike Winnett, you are appreciated. Anyway, that is the third way that the influencer model and the cult leader model overlap. You see the overlap here? Anyway, selling courses. Now we see this with false prophets and their holy book all the time. Scientology and their holy book, Dianetics. Check out that video on Why Did Chef Leave? My favorite false prophet is Sadhguru. He has holy books. And what is a book for? It's merch. Yes, it comes down to the merch. Check out my video on merch. Sadhguru has the most merch. It is shameless. Imagine you need a PayPal account for enlightenment. Imagine that. And there are a lot of Christian megachurches too, which is hilarious because Jesus literally flipped over the money lending tables at Temple. He literally flipped them over. But, you know, here's our gift shop at the church. Get out of here, dude. And they ask for 10%. This is crazy. It's crazy people go for this. Anyway, that gets me to where cult leaders and false prophets are the original influencers. They got the gift of gab. They had ideas that they spread to people. They had charisma that drew people in. Of course, cults are spreading over the internet. We are on cult turf. We went to their territory here. And of course, all the gurus are influencers. They always were. And do you know why we get to see this happen? And by we, I mean Americans in 2025. We get to see it because we don't execute or imprison or exile people who speak for a living. In other cultures or in other times, a content creator might be before he could become a cult leader, or as soon as he started showing cult-like tendencies, that's it for the guy. Socrates, he was executed for corrupting the youth. Now you get a book deal for corrupting the youth. Even today, in countries like Saudi Arabia, people are for heresy for this. Now, Saddam Hussein, he was famous for keeping Islamic extremists down. We know how. And he was never appreciated. You don't know what you got till it's gone. We're sorry, Saddam. This is all just a massive social experiment in cult formation we're watching run in real time. And I am here for it. I'm here for it because I don't have an option. I don't have a choice. So here I am. Now, speaking of a person go from influencer to cult leader in real time, the one everyone is talking about is Joe Rogan. I promised you 5 minutes and here goes. Joe Rogan, I believe, started honestly. He definitely wasn't a saint at the beginning. He definitely wasn't. But he wasn't what he has become. To me, Joe Rogan isn't a cult leader. What we're seeing in Joe Rogan is an attempt to shift the culture entirely. It's an attempt to shift the cultural power from New York and LA and Boston to Texas and Florida. And we're seeing this across a lot of things. Joe is just part of the plan. You also have Musk, Thiel, and Trump. And they said it. Dr. Phil, when he launched Marriage Street Media, he said, this is a battle for the soul of the country. I don't know how that's going. Marriage Street Media has had some major financial problems, but Trump and Thiel are still in power. Thiel, JD Vance, there's a connection there. We're not going to go into it. Calling Joe Rogan a cult leader ignores how successful he's been in completely rewriting our culture. The people who moved with him to Austin made a bet that he would win, and many of them are doing quite well because of it. Not because they think that Joe Rogan is literally magic, but he delivers in making them rich and powerful. Now, I'll explain this from the beginning for those of you who don't know the story. I'm going to have to skim a lot of it, but nevertheless, Joe Rogan, he has the #1 podcast. I used to love him around 2015 because he had on scientists and theorists, and they would explain to him their revolutionary ideas. And Joe Rogan, he's not a brain surgeon, but he's no dummy. So the experts would have to explain their super complicated ideas to a non-expert over a 3-hour podcast, who he also has some information. Joe Rogan would also add information to the discussion, usually about DMT or elk meat or fighting. And it was great. It was really entertaining. But then COVID happened and Joe went against the popular narrative and the mainstream media tried to destroy him, even though Joe Rogan spoke for a major proportion of the country. It wasn't just some strange fringe movement. These huge takedown videos are like, and then Joe Rogan, went crazy and he went off to the middle of nowhere to start this commune of his. Like, no, he went to Texas, the second largest state. There are millions of people in Texas. It wasn't the middle of nowhere. those people were also and have been begging for entertainment that is not connected to LA or New York City for a long time. I saw this more as a cultural shift or as an attempt at a cultural shift. So for the record, I do not want to see the culture shift from north to south because I think the coastal elites actually have better culture. Look, they suck and they're annoying and they're an embarrassment to their ancestors. And half of them are Disney adults and they are too weak and stupid to defend film, a beautiful genre of art from the Marvel slop that has taken over Hollywood. Okay. But all in all, I still think the coastal elite culture is better, especially when you take Boston into consideration, not just Los Angeles or New York. I come from a coastal elite culture and I hate them with all of my heart. So I do empathize with Joe. Yes, I put all of that on my Christmas cards every year. Merry Christmas, I hate you. Anyway, but Joe Rogan became friends with Elon Musk, who also left the left. And then he went all in on Donald Trump. And this is where the problem I have with them begins. The reaction to the hysteria on the left was more hysteria on the right. And unfortunately, the hysteria on the right is still underway and it could get really, really messy. Let's hope not. Fingers crossed. The Musk chapter of the Trump-Musk thing seems to be done, but the backlash against woke, which Joe represents or represented, has just begun. You could try to explain Musk Doge to a kid in 20 years. It's like the world's richest man hopped up on ketamine, promised to end government bloat, but he just cut funding to vaccine programs in Africa, and then the government ended up spending more. Yeah, good luck. And the Trump administration is filled with podcasters and internet celebrities popularized by Joe Rogan and Fox News. Oh, and the tech billionaires, by the way, who have positioned themselves in power through JD Vance. All right. Now, Joe Rogan and Alex Jones, they used to be conspiracy theorists. They used to be. But now they're backing a guy who wants to put chips in people's brains, Elon Musk, and the one who owns the company that is supposedly making a master list of Americans, Peter Thiel. All right. Seems a little off-brand to me, so can't follow you there. But look, I understand that in the comedy world, especially in podcasting, Joe Rogan is king. He is the #1 podcast, as I said, and he's got the president's ear. He is not an outsider anymore. He is the establishment now. And there are people making a living from being in his good graces. And apparently, according to Elephant Graveyard and others as well, it is easy to fall out of Joe Rogan's good graces. Now, this is where the high control element comes into play. They allege that he made people move to Austin and worship at this comedy club called The Mothership. Plus, maybe there's DMT rituals. That's implied. The DMT rituals are implied. I don't think anything that cool is happening. I wish. So is Joe Rogan an influencer turned cult leader? And to me, he's not. He's just a powerful man who needs to be flattered, like most powerful men. He was rejected from his community, and so he decided to turn on his community. Respect. But in my opinion, what he's attempting is to completely shift the culture, the cultural soul of the nation from north to south. It is not some weird fringe commune. He didn't go off to live amongst the Bush people. He's in Texas, which is a fully developed state. They wear shoes, apparently. At least now they do. So what Joe Rogan is doing is much more influential than starting a cult. He's changing our culture, or he is trying to. And people like Elephant Graveyard and Too Lazy to Try are speaking out against him, so they're trying to stop him from doing that. However, moving past Joe Rogan, we're done with Joe Rogan, we should be on the lookout for influencers turning into cult leaders. And you'll find a lot more of them than you will Joe Rogans. And I do believe that some people slow walk their way from influencer to cult leader because the path is there and someone can find themselves inadvertently walking it. All right, so that's the video. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week.